Good afternoon, Emma. Thank you so much for joining us for this very special Property Marketing Lounge episode in recognition of International Women's Day.
And thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. So you're a self-employed business strategist. What made you focus on supporting women in particular?
So I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for 22, 23 years and decided to leave because there was this whole piece around being menopausal, single parent, traveling the world, and all of these lanes all met to a decision to leave because the corporate arena just wasn't supporting me for all the things that I needed at that point in my life. And I see this everywhere. I set up an agency, set up a consultancy, and very quickly as a self-employed woman saw that there was this huge diversification in what men and women were charging. And we now know that it's 43% of a pay gap in self-employed people, women versus men, which is far greater than it is in corporate, where they obviously are declaring their salaries. And I've just seen perpetually this compound and decided that I've got a 13-year-old daughter. I don't want her to think that she's got to do university, corporate job, and then it not suit what she wants in her life. So I just want her to have equal opportunities with everything. I want her to know exactly what her value is so that, she's not underpricing. And I just think more women need, the whole system needs to change to accommodate women. It's just not set up. It's very patriarchal. So I've never been somebody to sit back and just moan about it and, get a little Facebook group that whinges, but actually go out and shake the tree and make change. So I'm now very fortuitously working with government to try and change some of this for entrepreneurial women.
And why is there that gap, particularly in the self-employed? Is it just because it's not something that has to be declared? Or is it a confidence or a skills issue?
That is the $1 million question. And there is no one answer. So there is a huge amount of self-confidence sort of difference. The Hewlett-Packard study that everybody's probably aware of by now is, they advertised a job, 10 different traits and skills that they needed. Women, if they only had, 8, wouldn't go for it. Guys, if they had 6, would be like, that's my job. And we see that particularly in the self-employed world, where there is no skills, business, education given to any self-employed person. But for women particularly, once they have children, they take lower paid jobs to be able to accommodate it, because the lower paid jobs allow a lot more part-time working, flexible working, if at all. Sometimes they don't at all, so they just leave the whole workplace. And then since 2008, the digital explosion has allowed women to work from the kitchen table and set up these businesses where they can do whatever it is that they decide to do, sell online, become experts, consultants, coaches, freelancers. But actually what comes with that is there's no follow-up with funding. So these women are setting up businesses on credit cards and loans, or savings even, which is, even worse. And then there's just no skill in education and business support to push them into what a normal business would get. And they don't know where to go. It's advertised in very strange places that women would never know to look. They don't go out into where women sort of hang around and chat, and it's just not there. The funding isn't there. And, Rishi Sunak is on this big, crusade. He was in the Sunday Times a few weeks ago saying we need more female entrepreneurs. So I have written and said, what about the ones you've already got? Because there's probably about 1.5 million women that fit this demographic that are just totally underserved. And as a result, we shy, we play small, we kind of go, oh, what do I think that they might pay me for that service? And we're just not standing powerfully in the value that we bring to clients. Just an example, if I can share it, is I had a client come to me and say, I lost a tender last week. I said, okay, what did you price then? She said, oh, it's about £750. I thought that was a really good price. And I said, well, okay, so what happened? And she said, well, the guy came in and bid £6,000 and got it. And I said, well, okay, so basically what's happened is you have priced yourself in the market as not very good. because your pricing really reflects your quality. We all know that, that we'll all pay and think that when we pay more, we get quality. And women are they're really struggling with this pricing and mindset around money, and they're not being supported. So it's a massive issue, and there's lots of different reasons. It could be that, they're in communities that are not supportive or not pushing them forward and just stay at home and play small and look after the kids. And, there's very much the domestic carer and the breadwinner mentality in a lot of households still. It's a big societal, economic, government issue, but I also think there's internal issues for women as well.
We spoke kind of off air about the construction and property industry having the biggest gender pay gap. Why is that, do you think, and what kind of experiences have you seen of people working in those industries?
So construction and property have got the worst gender pay gap in the employed market space. I don't know about entrepreneurial space, but people sometimes get equality of pay and gender pay gap mixed up. So equality of pay is if you and I did the same job at the same level, same hours, we would get equal pay. And that came from the 1950s when the Equality Pay Act came in. But what we see is that there are some industries, and the construction and property industry is a perfect example of this, where there are not enough women in the industry, and the progression and promotion of women up into senior positions doesn't happen. So whilst somebody might say, well, I've got a 50-50 workforce, actually the pay within that industry, or that company rather, is still lower for women because they're still in the more administrative assistant roles. And we see a lot of that in construction. Sometimes it's because when women have children, like I said, the systems fail. If it's quite a male dominated environment, they might hold meetings outside of hours. They might, not do this return to work. They might say, actually, you can't work from home around the kids. You can't do reduced hours, like all the things that we don't lose our brain and our quality and our skills because we have children. We just got another demand. And, whilst we're quite good at juggling it, there are only so many hours in the day that we can do both. And there are some very male dominated industries, which construction notoriously is, that don't enable women to progress within it. And I think that's what's happening in the construction industry.
Yeah, and I'm nodding away. That's certainly something that I can concur with. And you talk quite a lot about women gaining financial independence. And what does that mean, and how does that impact women?
So for me, a lot of women, friends, clients, and just people in Facebook groups or, wherever communities, a lot of them will say, oh, well, I can't do that because, I depend on my husband's salary, or, I'm not able to leave an unhappy marriage because I haven't got anything to provide, or I can't save for my future because I haven't got enough money coming in. So it's about moving all of those obstacles that save us, or stop us rather, from gaining some kind of growth within ourselves or our business. So it's being able to say, this is my money and I have enough to cover a mortgage if I decide I want my own house, because women have less access to mortgages as a self-employed woman than a man. It's known that we just do not save for the future. There's no property investment, there's no saving investment, there's no pension investment, because we're playing so small, there's no profit to go back in to our future. And there's just no independence for women financially other than what they're bringing in through the business. And that's a lot less than when they're in these employed jobs. So for me, it's the independence and the freedom that they don't have to think about money to make decisions, or think about other people that are controlling inadvertently what they do through money.
I wonder if that links to, so my next question was about kind of, have you seen an increase in female self-employment out of a desire for entrepreneurship, or as a result of the challenge they're finding within the employed workplace? And that's in the workplace, I guess sometimes they have a lot of those employed benefits and pensions and healthcare and all of those things. but they're obviously leaving the employed workplace and going into entrepreneurship. Do you think is it a conscious choice a lot of the time, or is it lack of choice and leaving that security?
So I would say that 90% of women that leave paid jobs and become an entrepreneur, self-employed woman, freelance, gig economy, whatever you call it, is because the system has failed them. It's not because they woke up one morning and thought, hell, I've got the best idea in the world, I need to go and launch this into the world. And that's why you'll find a lot of them in service-based industry, where they're, freelancing, they're expert in coaching, consulting, graphic designing, HR consulting, marketing consulting, whatever it might be. It's selling expertise and service. And the systems have failed them because, majority have found that when they return to work after having children, or could even be looking after elderly parents, or just wanting a bit of a better work-life balance, they're just fed up of banging their head on that bureaucratic patriarchal wall. So they leave, and then they say, okay, what can I do now? I was one of those people. I wanted to be there and look my daughter in the eyes every evening, not look at her asleep every time I walked in the door. And I think a lot of us want to be able to control a bit better life. In fact, there was a survey done, and I think it's like 75% of women have left their corporate jobs for a better, freer life. So that tells you everything, really.
Even if that freer life, I guess, comes at financial, consequences a lot of the time, and it's that much of a pull.
That's exactly it. And they kind of almost think that there's a trade-off. So I don't mind being financially unfree and burdened if I can get time free and family free. But what I'm trying to work with all my clients is, you can have all of it. You can become financially free, time free, family free. This is your life. This is your business. You get to choose. These are your rules. You're not suddenly locked back into the same prison you were in a corporate job where you just happen to own the business. You are the business owner. You make the rules and you set your prices. And that's how we're going to close the gender pay gap, by allowing women to grow and become more financially independent.
What would you like to see evolve for women in business? Is there, I know, you obviously, massively, banging the drum for the gender pay gap. What can businesses do? What can the government do? What can happen to make things better?
The first thing anyone ever says to me is, oh God, you're all about the women. But this is not just a woman gender problem. This is for anyone that has got a daughter, a sister, a mother, an aunt. This is something that affects 50% of our population, and it's a problem that we should all fix together. It's a man and a woman's problem. So, if you are a business owner, male or female, it's about really looking at the policies you've got that enable women to continue in employment. It's also what I'm trying to do with work with government is look at how we can fund women to create businesses where they're not strapping themselves into debt from the get-go, where they then become very desperate and take anything that's offered to them because they've got this crippling debt that's to start with. And I think education is everything. I would love to see business skills in school so that my daughter at 13 doesn't just learn about the sustainability of Nike, which is her current project. She learns how that business actually runs and how they globalize and how they, build their products, and really get into, how does this all work, and that you can become an entrepreneur. And this is how you do it. So I think that there's sort of three prongs. There's the business owners now that employ men and women, looking at policies. There's a government support funding, and then there's just an educational element that needs to go all the way from school and up. So I mean, I could talk for ages about the different solutions, but kind of those are the buckets I think we all need to be looking at.
And like you say, it's a societal issue. It's everywhere. And the point that you made about, we talk about it, we were talking before that International Women's Day it should be more for men than women. We're already there, we're already on board. It's actually, in a lot of cases, the kind of male hierarchy that needs to change. But like you said, everybody's got a daughter, an aunt, a sister, a mother,
and everyone benefits. We know the research says that if you have women at senior leadership roles on boards, the companies are more profitable. So, even if you don't really worry too much about the societal impact, and you don't have any women around you that it's going to, like, look at your profits. Like, you will be more profitable by having more divergent thinking at that level on your board. So it's for everyone. Everybody wins from this.
Absolutely. It's been fascinating talking to you, Emma. We'll wrap our conversation up there. Thank you so much for joining us. I know that our audience are going to be really, really interested with what you've got to say. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.